I have a great deck I want to show you all today. And so starting off with this matchup this is against Agnar, I believe. And yeah, Agnar has a little bit of a setback. It's still legal, but Cage Savage is now banned. Um, and so this is a little bit of an old replay. And just to talk about that news a little bit, essentially what happened is South Road Mercenary tried catching Agnar, and then Agnar burnt down that Lost hideout, and as revenge, I think, or something, the Cage Savage um, got banned. So there's a little story behind it. Anyway, here I'm just gonna go ahead and sacrifice. Actually, okay, yeah, I sacrificed one of my duplicate cost 2 allies against Agnar. All the allies have claw attack or basically or sword attack, I think. Yeah, that's probably right. So Layarian Knight is actually pretty useful. It reduces the claw damage by 1. Now, this is a Loest deck that is all about essentially, um, it's kind of mid-range. You're not exactly a rush deck, so that is kind of a difference between this and Rush Mage. You're not exactly a rush deck. You're trying to kind of apply early pressure for sure. It's a very early oriented deck, but you can essentially win in the late game. That's fine, and um, and so yeah, you're not pressured to really go all out. You want to control the board, get in hits with your allies, and then finish off with your abilities. But you're a little slower than a rush deck in that you're not going face from the start. Even a rush mage is not going to go face from the start. They're going to want to control the board a little bit and then maybe give up the board to go face, and then Supernova is the usual game plan for a rush mage. Yeah, I do want to talk about the sacrifice choice here. I sacrificed Aldon the Brave. Now, the reason I sacrificed Aldon the Brave is because I fully expect Layarian Knight to die. And frankly, in against Agnar, and especially once Agnar does not have their draw set up, what you want to do is you want to basically keep your removal cards. So these fireballs are going to help us remove our opponent's allies. Plus, Aldon is a very strong ally, but it's only useful when your allies are actually living. And I don't think Layarian Knight will live because all he needs to do is play Agnar, and then he can kill Layarian Knight with this Feasterling. So let's see what happens and see if this will pay off. And actually, it turns out our opponent did not have Agnar. So actually, I do kind of wish I did keep that Layarian Knight. That would have been pretty helpful. Or sorry, that Aldon the Brave. Gonna go ahead and sacrifice Tainted Oracle. I have too many of those. And just kill that Feasterling with the Layarian Knight. Now, Tempest Runebearer is a really important card in this matchup because it essentially takes 1 less damage from all ability damage. So because of Reika is going to increase the damage that Agnar does by 1, but then Tempest Runebearer is going to decrease it by 1. So that's why this still has 3 health right now, which is very, very helpful. I decided to go for the Tainted Oracle play here. I think it's nice to just have more draw going, and yeah, just have that potential. Now, I guess that is probably a mistake here, given that now that he bad Santas, I don't even get that draw. So I probably should have maybe fireballed, but one thing to keep in mind is that Reika reduces the damage by 1, so I didn't want to fireball and leave Agnar on 1 health. Arguably, that is probably what I should have done given this, but yeah. That is why I chose not to do that. Um, so here's where we're going to fireball, and I choose to fireball the Agnar away. Just get that out of the picture, and then I end up doing an interesting choice. I exile um, the bloodstained thing. I forget the name, altar, I think. And the reason is Cage Savage can only attack when it's on 3 attack. And so my gamble is, okay, I'm gambling that my opponent doesn't have Agnar. If he did have another Agnar in hand, I think it's just game over for me. But because our opponent did not have Agnar, we can still survive this because these Cage Savages cannot attack. So that was very fortunate for me, I think. Um, so now we're going to sacrifice a Tome of Knowledge. Agnar decks rarely run any kind of removal, so We're pretty good on that front. We're just going to get rid of these caged savages. They might not be able to attack now, but I'm pretty sure in the future, as soon as he draws into Agnar, these are going to turn live. So again, another one where we don't have Agnar. Now I get rid of Supernova because against this kind of deck, Supernova actually hurts us more than it hurts them, I think. And I play Ascetic of Aldmor because this can help me start chipping away at the durability on Twice Enchanted. So that is quite important there. Now I'm starting to get a little worried about my health. I've got 9 health left, which is not a lot at all. So I've got to do something about that. I just play Tempest Runebearer and Tainted Oracle, and right now I'm just going to hope that our opponent doesn't have some sort of mage ability, and luckily they do not. So here we draw again, and now we can exile this Twice Enchanted Robe. That's an important card to get rid of in this matchup because of the fact that essentially it lets them draw cards, and it's great against our deck that uses a lot of abilities. And so, yeah, we're definitely getting quite lucky here based off of our opponent kind of bricking a little bit, but that is often what you can kind of expect against Reika. Now, I'm hoping to draw into Fireball there, but because I don't, I just take the draw. I don't want to risk them drawing into a Fireball or anything, so I just Supernova for the draw there. So that was against Agnar, Reika, and I arguably the strongest deck in the format. And so you do have the potential to beat Agnar, even though this is well, I'll just say I designed this deck for an internal contest that we're doing as the Black Temper Guild, and so it's not really designed with Agnar in mind, actually, but the fact that it can handle Agnar and it's also a 4-card deck for the monthly contest is great. Now I just want to see if I can find another good match. Maybe we'll just watch this one, and that will finish off this deck, probably. So yeah, the idea of the deck is that you're very flexible with Loest's ability. You can have the ability to exile anything, and that's really, really nice. So that's super helpful to remove that one thing that is really annoying. So that could be in this matchup. Often Loest will remove Blood Frenzy, and that can be very good for us. Here I'm just sacrificing my kind of duplicate cards, making sure I stay on curve. 1 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost. So that's why I sacrificed what I did. I sacrificed another Tempest Runebearer just because I'm dropping it now. And on turn 4, I'm going to play one of these cards. So I'm just sacrificing to my curve. Nothing too fancy there. And yeah, just this is a great example of a game where we just kind of curve out very well, and it's just a very hard thing for an opponent to beat. Now, because of Boris, he can get rid of our Tempest Runebearer for free, which is very nice. And then Seductress actually hitting the Ascetic of Aldmor is kind of interesting there. Now, I guess that's a valid choice because Ascetic of Aldmor can reduce the base attack of an opposing ally by 1, as long as you have equal resources or less resources than your opponent. So I think our opponent was worried about that. This is where Loest really can be very powerful, especially in conjunction with Shadowbolt, giving us the 1 shadow energy. That's going to let us exile Blood Frenzy here. And that's going to really slow down our opponent unless they have another Blood Frenzy. And even if they do, that's still 3 resources that they have to commit to that. Our opponent playing Braxnorian Soldier, and here we get extremely lucky with Shadowbolt, just top decking that. I think without that, we can still reduce the attack by 1 with Ascetic of Aldmor, but it's going to be still annoying to deal with. Then our opponent can kill the Ascetic of Aldmor, and we might be in a little bit of trouble there. Now, our opponent is just going ahead and playing these allies, so that's very strong for them. So we're going to Ascetic of Aldmor there, Kurt, and then just deal with the Layarian Knight. So, yeah, Ascetic of Aldmor just showing us why it's such a powerful card. Putting this on only 1 attack is crucial because now our opponent can't actually kill anything that we have on only 1 attack. So, yeah, just showing why Ascetic of Aldmor is so strong. Now here we can just reduce the attack of Kurt to 0, and now it really can't do much. I made sure to attack with this Ascetic because of the fact that when Twilight Opportunist is in combat with allies, it has one attack. So do be aware of that if you are facing against this. And I just go for the damage on Kurt because I am aware, or it is important to be aware that Kurt can get +2 attack if he gets 3 allies out. And so just in case, we're just gonna, plan for that eventuality. Aldmor dying there. Now I should note that I technically could Loest the Enrage or Loest the Crippling Blow here. Um, and I think I choose to save it if I remember correctly. Yeah, I chose to save it, the ability, because of the fact that I want to remain flexible. If my opponent drops a fatty here or something, depending on their top deck, whatever that might be. So that's why I don't exile the Crippling Blow or the Enrage, even though I could have. Arguably, it would have helped me win this game sooner, but I just wanted to save it. And here, I guess it goes to show that I probably didn't need to save it this much because of Shadowbolt allowing me to kill this fatty anyway. So yeah, here is when I think I decide, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and use my ability, exile this Crippling Blow, and attack with the Tempest Runebearer. I don't exile the Enrage because my opponent could be running multiple Enrages. So, I think it's good to exile Enrage once you're at 5 Shadow Energy, but I don't want to exile it early and not be sure that it's going to win the game on the spot for me. So here we're just going to go face because I realize, next turn I'm basically going to win unless my opponent pulls off a miracle because I can just exile the Enrage with Loest ability, even if my opponent somehow manages to clear my board. And so, yeah, this just goes to show how strong Loest can be. I chose this to highlight how Loest has a great matchup against Warriors and a lot of decks that rely on that one card. In the case of Warriors, they rely very heavily on stuff like Blood Frenzy, and they rely very heavily on stuff like Enrage. And so Loest really can punish those kind of heroes because you can just get rid of that one card that they absolutely need. Okay, this is not the deck. I will make a video on this in the future, so you can watch out for that. But okay, I'm totally lost. Okay, here it is. All right, and so this is the deck. Now it is a 4-copy deck, so every card in the deck is has 4 copies in it, and that's just because of the monthly contest. You want 4 max. It really means 4 min, and yeah. I think this deck does really well during this contest. If you play it well, it is a little tricky to play, but if you play it well, you can definitely go very far with this deck. I didn't want to shout out Tommy for helping, who shared this original deck with me. I made some adjustments. I did in Ascetic of Aldmor. Obviously, I adjusted it to be a 4-min deck. But it is very similar to a deck he was running, and the story behind that is for several months he consecutively got first in the ladder with a very similar deck to this. So that just goes to show, even though that was an older meta, this deck is a very competitive deck, and it will likely continue to be a competitive deck. Even though we have Agnar and everything, it's just such a solid, aggressive, but very flexible deck where you can go into the mid game pretty comfortably, especially with Loest's ability, and just control the board and deal a lot of damage very early on. Yeah, a very nice hero overall. And because it's more of a control-y deck, we run Shadowbolt instead of Lightning Strike. I think this is one of the main differences between this and, say, a Rush Mage. A Rush Mage is not going to run Shadowbolt. A Rush Mage is going to run Lightning Strike. And a Rush Mage might run some other cards. They probably aren't going to run Tempest Runebearer. They're going to run it's right here, Christopher Wilde, and just try to do as much damage as early as possible. And here we kind of give up some of that damage. We have less potential for those very early damage spikes. And instead, we're focusing on cards that can help us reach the mid game and control the board even in the mid game, and while still putting on a lot of early pressure and hopefully carrying that through to the end game. Anyway, I've blabbed on for probably long enough, so yeah, that's the deck. And what do you think about this deck? Is this a deck that you would run? And yeah, let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. And just because it's an obligatory shout out, I am running a crowdfunding campaign for a game called Chroma Mix, and you can watch that. Watch out for that on June 1st. But without further ado, that's the end of the video, so see you guys next time.